10 or 20 years later, he would not have succeeded in gaining employment in a respectable or society shop. The influential Cabinet Makers Society, of which Lovett himself became president, had consolidated the position of its members in the quality branches of the trade and closed the doors against the mass of unapprenticed or semi skilled labor clamoring without. At the same time, the dishonorable trade had mushroomed. Middlemen had set up slaughterhouses or great furniture warehouses, and poor garret masters in Bethnal Green and Spitalfields employed their own families and apprentices in making chairs and shoddy furniture for sale to the warehouses at knockdown prices. Even less fortunate workers would buy or scrape together wood to make work boxes or card tables, which they hawked in the streets or sold to cut-rate East End shops. The history of each trade is different, but it is possible to suggest the outlines of a general pattern. Whereas it is generally assumed that living standards declined during the price rises of the war years, and this is certainly true of the laborers, weavers, and wholly unorganized workers, nevertheless, the war stimulated many industries and made for fuller employment. In London, the arsenal, the shipyards, and the docks were busy, and there were large government contracts for clothing and equipment for the services. Birmingham prospered similarly until the years of the Continental blockade. The latter years of the war saw a general erosion of apprenticeship restrictions, both in practice and at law, culminating in the repeal of the apprenticeship clauses of the Elizabethan Statute of Artificers in 1814. According to their position, the artisans reacted vigorously to this threat. We must remember that this was a time when there was little schooling and neither mechanics institutes nor technical colleges, and that almost the entire skill or mystery of the trade was conveyed by precept and example in the workshop by the journeyman to his apprentice. The artisans regarded this mystery as their property and asserted their unquestionable right to the quiet and exclusive use and enjoyment of their arts and trades. Consequently, not only was repeal resisted, a nascent trades council being formed in London and 60,000 signatures being collected nationally to a petition to strengthen the apprenticeship laws. But as a result of the threat, there is evidence that the trades clubs were actually strengthened so that many London artisans emerged from the wars in a comparatively strong position. But at this point, the histories of different trades begin to diverge. The pressure of the unskilled tide beating against the doors broke through in different ways and with different degrees of violence. In some trades, the demarcation between an honorable and dishonorable trade was already to be found in the 18th century. That the honorable trade had maintained its position despite this long standing threat may be accounted for by several reasons. Much of the 18th century trade was in luxury articles, demanding a quality of workmanship not obtainable by sweated labor. Moreover, in times of full employment, the small scale dishonorable trade might actually offer better conditions than those of the society men. Thus, the Gorgon, noted in 1818 of the opticians and type founders that there had grown up a smaller class of tradesmen termed garret masters, who not only sell their manufacture cheaper than those of large capital, and who carry on the trade on a more extensive scale, but they do actually give higher wages to the men they employ. This, we believe, is the case in all trades. The outline of this demarcation can be seen in the differentiation between the flint and dung tailors and between the militant and well organized ladies' shoemakers and the workers in the men's boot and shoe trade. The shoemakers of both groups were, however, among the first to feel the full effect of the influx of illegal men. The position of the Londoners was weakened by the growth of the large outwork boot and shoe industry in Northamptonshire and Staffordshire. Some incidents in the London shoemakers' history were recorded by Alan Davenport, a Spencean socialist. It was in 1810 that I began to work for Mr. Bainbridge, and it was then I first joined a shop meeting, for all the shops that I had worked for before were unconnected with any meetings. Perhaps they were thought too insignificant. I was kindly received by the members of the 5th Division of Women's Men, i.e., makers of women's shoes, then held at the York Arms, Holborn, and in a short time became a delegate. From the time I became a member to 1813, the women's men acquired great strength as to members and a considerable increase in pecuniary means. We had at one time 14 divisions in London, besides being in union, kept up by a well regulated correspondence with the trade in every city and town of any importance throughout the kingdom. But about this time the trade commenced a lawsuit against a master for employing an illegal man and refusing to discharge him. The case was conducted by two intelligent shopmates, assisted by an attorney in the Court of King's Bench. We gained the day, but the prosecution cost the trade £100, which was money thrown away, for almost immediately afterwards the law of Elizabeth, which made it illegal for a master to employ a man in our trade that had not served an apprenticeship, was repealed, and the trade was thrown open to all. In the spring of 1813, the Union held a strike in support of a detailed price list. Every demand of the men was conceded, and we all returned comfortably to our work. But some of the more turbulent of the members, intoxicated with the success of our last strike, madly proposed a few weeks after to commence another strike. This arrogant proceeding brought on a crisis in the trade. The masters, who till then had no association and were strangers to each other, became alarmed, called themselves together, formed an association, and being completely organized, the strike was resisted. The men were defeated and scattered to the winds, and hundreds of men, women, and children suffered the greatest privations during the following winter. From this fatal strike, I date the downfall of the power of the men and the commencement of despotism among the master shoemakers.